The original Resident Evil was released in the US for the Sony PlayStation on March 30th, 1996. The project was a collaboration between Capcom game designer Takuro Fujiwara and creative director Shinji Mikami, with Fujiwara's initial concept of the game being envisioned as a remake of an earlier project he had helmed for the Famicom Disk System, Sweet Home, based on a Japanese horror film of the same name. Prior to Resident Evil, Mikami had worked on a series of successful games at Capcom based on Disney properties, which included Goof Troop and Aladdin for the Super Nintendo. He has stated how he was initially reluctant to sign on with the project, citing how he himself hates the feeling of being scared. However, the success of Resident Evil would prove that Mikami's understanding of what is truly frightening would work towards the project's advantage, as the game would quickly rise in the ranks to become one of the most popular, best-selling games on the PlayStation, reaching sales of over 1 million copies within its first year of release. Resident Evil was an instant classic, garnering a massive worldwide audience in 1996, but it wouldn't be until 2 years past its inaugural launch, pending the release of its blockbuster sequel, that this pioneer of the survival horror genre would eventually capture my attention. This is my gaming memory of the very first Resident Evil. It was here in the pages of PSM, the unofficial PlayStation magazine, where I would receive my first introduction into the events taking place in Raccoon City. Rookie Police Officer Leon S. Kennedy, and the sister of one of the few surviving members of the Spencer Mansion incident, Claire Redfield. The issue showed off screenshots of the upcoming title and provided some background on the ongoing viral outbreak storyline. These preview images and blurbs of the game fascinated me, and I instantly felt a connection with the main protagonists and their plight to overcome the hordes of zombies and mutated creatures that stood between them and any hope of an escape from the terrors created by the evil Umbrella Corporation. I distinctly remember as I read over the details of this article what must have been over 100 times, the singular thought that remained prevalent in my mind for the months to come. I must play this game. Only one small problem stood in my way when it came to finally getting my hands on what I had already built up in my mind to be one of the most must-own games ever to be released. That being the fact that, well, I didn't actually own a Sony PlayStation. Yes, despite my love of all things video games at the time, the reality of my situation was I was 13, and my family didn't exactly have a surplus of expendable income to quench what was fast becoming my growing gaming addiction. So I relied on gaming publications like PSM and Electronic Gaming Monthly with their articles previewing and reviewing the latest releases to satiate my gaming appetite with stories of all the latest titles that I would likely never have the opportunity to sit down and engage with myself. It was mere happenstance that sometime down the line of me becoming utterly obsessed with engrossing myself with every tidbit of Resident Evil 2 information I could find, that one of my older sister's friends would stop by with not only their PlayStation console in tow, but a copy of the original Resident Evil. I actually think I was initially disappointed that it was the first game in the series that they had come to show off, since, frankly speaking, prior to the sequel, it was the one I had never heard of before. This seemed to say to me that it must obviously be the inferior game, much like how nobody ever talks about the original Street Fighter, seeing as how Capcom didn't really strike gold with that series until its second installment. I figured this had to be a similar case. I was sure Resident Evil would be a novel game with perhaps a few decent ideas that wouldn't fully be developed until the masterpiece of the sequel. And can you really blame me? Capcom has a bit of a history when it comes to their sequels completely overshadowing the original games in their franchises over the years. Nevertheless, I wasn't going to pass up my opportunity to delve into the game and see for myself just how right or wrong I was. From my earliest moments taking control of STAR's team member Jill Valentine, investigating the haunting halls of the Spencer Mansion, I immediately found myself immersed in the atmosphere of the game. The intense moment-to-moment gameplay kept me on the edge of my seat as I examined rooms for files and key items necessary to progress further into the mansion and uncover the secrets behind the mysterious Arklay Mountains research lab. However, that's not to say I was enamored with every aspect of the game upon my initial impressions. As much as the gameplay and story captivated me, I had not really been too much of an outright horror fan prior to this point, and there were many moments during my playthrough where I found myself reluctant to continue. The monsters that roamed the corridors of the mansion were legitimately terrifying. It took every ounce of resolve I could gather not to run away and cower in fear after my first encounter with the giant spiders that greet you in the dormitory area, and the deadly hunters that replaced the standard shambling zombies in the midsection of the game fueled many sleepless nights for me for weeks on end. I genuinely had to muster my courage with every boot up of the game to willingly delve deeper into this world of survival horror. Recognizing that I had to fight against my sincere feelings of dread and trepidation to continue on and make it to the next crucial plot beats only made it the more rewarding by the time I was at long last approaching the finale of the game. Every new hurdle fed into my persistent struggle, but also strengthened my determination to fight on to the conclusion. In many ways, Resident Evil truly was a gaming experience unlike anything I had ever encountered before, and for that reason, I couldn't help but fall in love with it. By the time the credits rolled, I felt as though I had been through an ordeal every bit as heart pounding and suspenseful as the characters in the game. I was now a survivor of these events as much as they were. As you might imagine, this only accelerated my desire and enthusiasm for jumping into the next chapter of the narrative. Now, over 20 years later, the original Resident Evil and Resident Evil 2, along with their 2002 and 2019 remakes, remain to be among my most revisited and revered games of all time, along with many other games in the series. As of the time of this recording, several new games in the franchise have been announced for release in the near future, including a remake of the renowned Resident Evil 4 and new content and features for Capcom's latest release, Resident Evil Village. There are rumors that a new remake of the original game may also be in the works utilizing Capcom's RE engine, and if that proves to be true, I'll be excited to play it. But I still believe there is a lot of merit to be found in revisiting these original versions. I highly implore anyone listening to this now to stop what you're doing and go pick up a copy if you haven't experienced it for yourself. I promise, you won't be disappointed. Please do leave a like and subscribe if you did enjoy this video, and let me know if you'd like to see more like it in the future. Also, be sure to share your own Resident Evil memories with me down in the comments below. For now, this is the Fabled Lionhart, signing off.